Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Very nice to see you here this morning, and happy May. And once again, happy Cinco de Mayo. And happy you, whatever's going on in your life. Happy you. In our spiritual practice, whatever it may be, typically Sunday morning it's a sitting meditation, but whatever form of spiritual practice you do in the Buddhist tradition, we aren't trying to become the Buddha. We aren't trying to get rid of anything. We sit as the Buddha. Not trying to imitate, but simply knowing that the essence of who we are is our own Buddha nature. The reality of who you are is the Buddha nature. And as we do that for a little while, doesn't take long, all of the non-Buddha places within us start to run. They come to the surface of awareness saying, no, 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 I'm not the Buddha. I'm a pain. I'm a fear. I'm a this, I'm a that. So we meet it just as the Buddha met Mara on the night of his enlightenment. We meet it simply by acknowledging, coming back to the breath. We meet it not by resistance of any kind, or at least that's the intention. Maybe we do meet it with resistance. The intention is to meet it with non-resistance, as the Buddha does. And kind of like muddy water. If you have a bucket of muddy water, the simplest way to clean it up is how? Let it sit, right? And all the mud, eventually the sediment settles to the bottom. Well, it's much the same way, only with us, the mud rises to the top. But it comes into our awareness, all of those places that we normally don't recognize as resistant. But we have all sorts of hidden resistances within ourselves. If all of our resistance was conscious, we could simply sit and recognize the resistance and practice anytime, anywhere. Walking, talking, driving. And we can do that to a degree. However, when we sit, it's like that bucket of muddy water being absolutely still. See, in our everyday life, it gets jiggled around quite a bit. It may settle for a little bit, and then somebody kicks it. Don't kick the bucket, okay? Because it muddies the water. All right? So as we sit, the mud, the resistance arises, and we discover that the common denominator to all of our resistance is that we want things to be other than they are, right? We want things to be different. We want to be richer, or we want to be better looking, or we want to be younger, or we want to be smarter, or we want to have more of this, or more of that, or less that, or more of this. But we want something different. Maybe we just simply don't want our nose to itch. Maybe we want to get rid of the pain that's in our back or our shoulder. Maybe it's the nagging thought, the worry, the restless mind, the what might happen, the what could happen, the what did happen, the injustice of it all, the unfairness of life, whatever conversation is going on, you see. As that mud comes to the surface, we non-resist it. We have to see it first before we can non-resist it. Because when we don't see it, we're consciously, or I should say unconsciously, identified with it. In other words, we're unconsciously agreeing with it. When it comes to the surface, we recognize it, and we simply say, no, that's not who I am. That's not who you are. I am the Buddha. You are the Buddha. Come back to the breath. Come back to this moment, whatever it is that the chant, whatever it is that we're using as a way of bringing us into the present moment. So coming into the present moment with the intention of allowing everything to be as it is, and then noticing all of those parts of us that want things to be different. We want things to be different. Why? We want to feel better. You know, if only I get that new job, I'll feel better. If only I get this relationship issue figured out, I'll feel better. If only I get more money or less pain or younger or older or more of this or less of that. And someday, you say, when then? I'll be happy. Everything will be wonderful. So that's the mind that resists. The mind resists by saying, this is not okay. The mind resists by saying, I want something else other than what's here. The mind resists by maybe going to sleep, refusing to see something. The mind resists by being deluded, by believing in something that's not true, by fooling ourselves. We want things to be different so that we will feel better. And maybe we can make things different. Not always, but sometimes we can. I'll get divorced and marry somebody else. I'll leave this job and find another one. I'll move to another city. And guess what? Wherever you go, there you are. See? The Buddha is right there with you, shining the light on all of the things that you try to run away from. So we find, certainly there's times it's appropriate to make changes in our life. But the question always is, am I making this change to enhance my life, to improve my life, to expand my awareness, or am I making this change to run away from myself, to avoid something? You see, in the West, this is our way of life. You know, we have several industries based upon running away from ourselves. The entertainment industry, the cosmetic industry. What are some of the other ones? Yeah, there you go. You got that one right. Yeah. So there's all sorts of ways that we create to distract ourselves, to avoid ourselves. And if you just look at commercials, that's always an interesting thing to do, is to look at the commercial, not from the point of view of the product, but what is it they're trying to tell you in virtually every commercial. You know, if you take this product or buy this product or whatever it is, you'll feel better, right? You know, and some of them will imply that you'll even find the man or woman of your dreams, or you'll have the perfect family, but we're always trying to change things so that we feel better. So we're resisting what is and chasing what isn't. In spiritual practice, we simply stop. We just don't do that. And then we look at what happens. Sometimes when we begin our spiritual practice, people will leave it, quit. They'll say it's too painful, too difficult, too boring, not getting anywhere. You say, how can just sitting be painful? Blaise Pascal, the philosopher, you would say, there's not one problem of humankind that couldn't be solved if human beings were able to sit for 30 minutes alone in a room doing nothing, which is what we do, you say. But most human beings sitting in a room alone doing nothing will quickly find something that scares them. They'll want to run. Something's got to be fixed. Something's got to be changed in the world. And again, people say, well, if it wasn't for that, there wouldn't be any changes in the world. There wouldn't be any growth. There wouldn't be any progress. I'm not so sure. We can do things driven by running away from suffering, or we can do things as a celebration, as a natural result of being who we are. Creativity is not running away from pain, true creativity. But so much of what we do is not creative. It's very uncreative because we're running away from pain. And we're running away from pain in a way that we've learned to run away from it a long time ago. We become experts at it when we're quite young. There's a story I'd like to tell you about a person named Milarepa. Some of you know Milarepa. He's considered a saint in some of the Tibetan Buddhist traditions. Milarepa was a hermit. He lived in a cave on the side of the mountain, and he would often go for long walks during the day, and he would be away from his home for many hours. One day when he came back from one of his walks, he came home and discovered that there were 7 demons had taken over his house while he was gone. You know how that goes when you're not looking. They come in, don't they? Wherever they come from. So he looked at all 7 of them and he thought, what should I do? So the first thing he says was, he was very indignant. He said, get out of here. You don't belong here. This is my house. Whereupon 3 of the demons left immediately, poof, they disappeared. But 4 more remained. And he said it again, "Get out of here." They just sat there looking at him. And he said, "Well, I have to try another tactic. Hey guys, this is your house. Make yourselves at home. There's food in the fridge. There's beer in the fridge. There's a football game on television, whatever. Have at it. Have a good time." 3 more disappeared. Well, there was one left, one big, mean, ugly, the biggest, meanest, ugliest of all. And he looked at him again. He says, "Take it all. You can have everything." And this demon just looked at him and said, "That's not enough. I won't leave." So Milarepa thought, and he realized there was only one thing he could do. He lay down, and he put his head in the demon's mouth and said, "Take my life if you must." Whereupon the last demon left. So that story of Milarepa is a great illustration of how to work with resistance. Because we don't always work with resistance in the same way. Because there are little demons and there are big, big demons, you see. There's the little demons, we can go like that, but then there's the big demons that all we can see is their toes. They're so big, you know. They seem much bigger than we are. So some of the demons, when they show up, we can simply look at them and say, "No, I'm not going to indulge in that." You know, if you're meditating and you recall an argument you had with a friend and you want to go back to self-justification and rehearsal and all of that sort of stuff, and maybe you say, "No, come back to the breath." Maybe that's enough. Or maybe we're driving down the freeway and a car cuts in front of us and we're ready to, and you know, we'll give them the one-fingered salute and all of that sort of stuff that we're tempted to do. We say, "Wait, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to take a deep breath. That's anger. I'm not going to indulge it," you see. Much of our resistance is coded in stories. We don't know we're resisting until we get caught up in a story of, "Was there, you know? Why do they always do that, you know? Them, they are somebody, they should." So that's our story, and sometimes we have this same story that goes on and on and on forever. So it would seem. There are times when we can just recognize the story and say, "No, I'm not going there." And those demons will be gone. Sometimes we can do that and the demons are still there. This pain hasn't gone, this depression hasn't gone, this anxiety hasn't gone, this frustration hasn't gone. Okay, so we shift gears, we go into the next mode. Welcome. Welcome. Have everything. Rumi writes a poem about that. It's called The Guest House. I'm sure many of you have heard it before. This being human is a guest house. Every morning, a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness, Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all, even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture. Still, treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the malice, the shame, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. And that's the practice that we call equanimity. That's a practice we call welcoming whatever is arising. Not in a masochistic way, of, oh boy, isn't this depression wonderful, but simply welcoming it as this is what's here. This is what's here, and I can meet it without resistance. I don't have to like it, I don't have to hate it, I can just allow it to be here, because it's here, you see. So going back to Milarepa, let's talk about that last demon. He was staring down the face of the meanest, ugliest demon, and he put his head in the demon's mouth. Sometimes we encounter these really, really big demons. These are the core issues. These are the lifelong issues that we deal with. It could be addiction. It could be depression. It could be anxiety. It could be some form of physical or mental illness or some kind of a ongoing malady, relationship issues, financial issues, whatever. But it's the one that keeps coming back over and over again, you see. Some teachers call it a karmic knot. Sometimes it feels like a knot. It's like there's a knot in the heart, you know. Samskara is the name, the Sanskrit name for them. Not samsara, but samskara with a K. That's the karmic knot. So, sometimes the only way to work with these is a total and complete surrender, in the sense that we give every bit of our life over to it. We recognize that maybe this is why we even took birth, is to work with this issue, to become acquainted with it. In the 12-step programs, which is one way of helping with some of these issues, typically they begin with recognition and surrender. So, I see this issue, this alcoholism, this drug addiction, this violence, this behavior, whatever it is that's with me my whole life, I see it. I stop blaming everybody else. I stop making excuses. I say, I see you, Mara. I have met Mara, and Mara is me, okay? And then we turn to our higher power, as they call it, which we would call the Buddha nature, the true nature. We turn to the Buddha within, and we surrender everything. I take refuge in the Buddha, take refuge in the Dharma, take refuge in the Sangha. See, that's not just a nice little prayer. It changes our life if we really live that. Take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Commit our life to that. Living as the Buddha. Again, not trying to bypass anything, welcoming everything, and at the same time not holding on to anything. These are the things that require retreats, they require a teacher, they require sometimes psychotherapy, maybe body work, whatever the case might be. But in a sense, it's all the same, that we're recognizing the resistance, we're wanting things to be other than they are. We recognize that, we stop buying that story, and we say, I surrender to my true nature. I stop trying to use my human nature to control my life. I let it all go. I let it all go. It's very big, very big. I mean, we're not talking about a hobby here. We're talking about a way of life. So I want to close by saying that oftentimes, if not most of the time, when we meet resistance as the Buddha, what seems like a curse can be a wonderful gift. And I want to close with this quote from Rilke, Rainer Maria Rilke, one of my favorite poets. He says, perhaps all the demons in our lives are princes or princesses who are only waiting to see us act just once with beauty and courage. Perhaps everything that frightens us in its deepest essence is something helpless that wants our love. Perhaps everything that frightens us is something helpless that wants our love. In its deepest essence, it is the Buddha nature in disguise. So let's take a moment just to sit and breathe. And I close with this chant from the Tibetan Book of the Dead. O nobly born, O you of glorious origins, remember your radiant true nature, the essence of mind. Trust it, return to it. It is your home. It is your home. Thank you for engaging in the practice. Please continue.